Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hi folks who are just joining. Thank you for attending this evening.
Hello,
we'll
everyone.
just give it a few more seconds to let folk come on in. Top up your tea, top up your wine. Get yourselves sitting comfortably. And okay, I think we'll make a start. Well, good evening, folks, and a very warm welcome to the online Naturetrek Roadshow. I'm Sarah Frost, Naturetrek's marketing manager, and tonight we're heading north to the Nordic regions of Europe, visiting Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Iceland. Now, Iceland was one of the most welcoming countries during the pandemic and one of the first destinations onto the green list, and it's where we resumed one of our first overseas tours this year, led by my colleague David Phillips, who's joining us to talk about Iceland tonight. Now, we pride ourselves at Naturetrek in being a tour operator that has many staff who also double up as leaders, and we're not always behind a desk. We like to get out in the field. And so also joining me from the office team is operations manager Tom Mabbett, who'll be talking to us about Sweden. And it's also a real pleasure to welcome two of our external leaders, Jessica Turner, who'll be talking to us about Norway, and Tim Melling, who'll be speaking to us about Finland. So I hope you're all sitting comfortably. I can't wait to be transported away from rainy Hampshire this evening. So just a reminder, you can pop your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. Be these questions about requirements for travel overseas or more information about a particular species which has been mentioned. We're very happy to answer all of these. That's what we're here for. We'll try and type responses to you throughout the evening, but we'll also take questions at the end where we have some time for discussion. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Tom, who's going to start our evening by taking us to Sweden. Over to you, Tom.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Just share my screen with you all. And we'll get started. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. My name's Tom Mabbett, and I'm an operations manager for Naturetrek. I'm sure lots of you may have heard me on previous roadshows. So I look after a whole range of different tours. Lots of UK trips, lots in Europe, and all around really. Lots in South America, out in Borneo. And for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to try and fit in all the highlights of Sweden and our tours to this fantastic country. Now I start the talk with this slide, but it's just, for me, sums it up. As you're flying in, straight away you're seeing lots and lots of water bodies, endless forests, fantastic forests, coniferous and deciduous, and just lots and lots of wonderful habitat for some very, very special species. So I'll just give a bit of context to where we are and where our tours actually visit. So we run a 3-night Sweden in spring tour, which focuses on sort of more lowland areas around the Black River Valley, the Svartedalen area, you can see circled here. It's around an hour and a half from Stockholm, and we usually fly in there, or occasionally we'll fly into Västerås itself, giving very little travel from the airport. And we also run a 4-night mammal tour in this area. I'm going to be covering mainly our tour, which combines these two circles. So we start in the lowland areas, and then we travel to this middle circle here for the more upland species. It's a really fantastic tour. So I'm mainly going to be talking about that. We also have a fairly recent addition, a tour to Swedish Lapland, which I won't be covering, but worth checking out if you're interested in that. So starting in the lowland areas around the Black River Valley area for the Upland tour, we spend 3 nights here. It's a fantastic tour for woodpeckers. Here we have black woodpecker, of course, the largest species in Europe, with this beautiful red crown, piercing white eye there. They've got a really sort of manic call. You can often hear them before you see them, and they're really super bird, and a really heavy drum when they get going. From the largest to the smallest, this was a lesser spotted woodpecker, barely larger than a sparrow. Really tiny birds. Every time I see one, it just amazes me how small they really are. This a male here with that red crown, and I'm working away on a mature alder here. So this is just around the grounds of the hotel. We can have some really lovely walks and lovely opportunities to bump into species such as this. real specialist is three-toed woodpecker. You need to find your stands of spruce for this species. It's a real spruce specialist, feeding on the spruce beetle larvae, flicking away the bark and feeding on them. We've got a good chance of finding them. So woodpecker-wise, we're really looking for 7 species. We have the black woodpecker, lesser spotted, great spotted, grey-headed, green, and wryneck as well. So it's a really great tour if you love your woodpeckers, and also if you love your owls. It's a super trip, this area, for encountering them. This is pygmy owl. So again, a very small species, Europe's smallest owl, and again, you're barely larger than a starling. Really, they look a little larger than a starling. They're sort of puffed up and they're a little bit heavier. But a very small owl, and we hope to see them in this area. We can. The 3-night birding tour is really dedicated to the owls and woodpeckers, and then we sort of head north on that longer itinerary to the uplands, which I'll come to a little bit later. Now, a real star of the show here, and the sort of #1 target. I've been lucky enough to lead the short birding tour, the combined upland tour, and the mammal trip. And when you ask people what they want to see on the trip, on the birding tours, great grey owl is right at the top of the list, and rightly so. It's a magnificent bird. One of the largest birds in the world, thought to be the tallest owl in the world. There are heavier species, but none taller, and they really are absolutely magnificent. And you can often see this on the first evening. So we'll land into Stockholm or Västerås, and by that same evening, you'll be out working around some glades in the forest, watching for this fantastic bird, just hunting out in the open glades. And they can put on a real show. They're not too worried about people around. They just go about their business, flying from perch to perch, working around the glade, hoping to, of course, hear their prey in the grass. The incredible hearing, and stoop in and take the prey. This is just another lovely shot of that big facial disc, a really stunning bird, and is a real highlight of the sort of start of the tour down in the lowland areas around the Black River Valley. And this photo just sums up a bit of a scenic shot here of just how close you can get. I mean, the great grey owl is sat on this platform here, totally oblivious to us watching. It's a very special experience. We'll also get involved with some ringing. So here we have the group around the ringers. This is ringing Ural owls. There's been a project for a number of years, which we get involved with. They take us to the sites, and we get to join in with it. Really, we get to see the young birds being taken from the nest and weighed and measured and ringed, and it's worked very well. You can just see here in this left-hand silver birch a female Ural owl looking down on the group, and that's why this chap here has got this really technical piece of kit, a big long pole with a big foam paddle on the end. This is just in case the Ural owl takes a disliking and stoops down and has a go at any of us, and the ringers in particular. They're very territorial and aggressive, Ural owls. And here's another shot of that piece of equipment, and this chap here with a crash helmet on, because they have been known to really come down and thud into the top of your head, and that wouldn't be pleasant. Oops, skipped on too far there. So here we have the ringer just measured and weighed this Ural owlet, and of course, there's a small amount of disturbance is far outweighed by the positives here. The population has been shown in this area to be really increasing. They use the boxes year after year, and they're doing really well. And it's something we like supporting. We fit into all our tours to the area. This is just a shot of the female keeping a close eye on us. And obviously, while we're waiting, we're having fantastic views and great photographic opportunities. I think it's a face only a mother could love. I think this Ural owlet. Time for a quick photo before it's popped back in the box and everyone's happy, and away we go. We'll also try visit Tengmalm's owl boxes as well. These are very closely linked, as are other species, but particularly Tengmalm's are linked to the vole population. So it's rather cyclical. The boom years of the voles will have good sized broods and a good chance of ringing some Tengmalm's chicks. Other years not so much. So they're very much linked to their prey. Eagle owl here is one of my photos. It's rather grainy. All the photos in the talk, I should say, are photos taken on the trips, and then none of them are sort of stock photos. There's a lovely eagle owl here with 3 youngsters, if you've got a bit of imagination, just sat in front of her. So owls and woodpeckers, brilliant tour. And there's just, as I said, there's endless habitats. So we'll go for forest walks, just enjoying everything that we may come across. And one of those species could be a capercaillie. Now these are these huge black grouse essentially, and occasionally there'll just be a fleeting glimpse of them quickly crossing the track ahead of us. Sometimes we encounter what's known as rogue males, these males that have carried on lekking and displaying, despite the fact that the females have gone, there's no other males around, there's nothing to display to. They're just so pumped up, they just carry on displaying throughout the day. And you can actually hear them at quite a distance. They're sort of guttural croaks and clicks, and it's quite amazing. If you do encounter them, they really have no fear of people. So this is another real target of the trips, of our Sweden trips. The fantastic capercaillie. What a magnificent bird. And this is a photo here, and I was leading a group, and John doesn't mind me sharing this photo. I did chat with him. We were watching this bird, strutting its stuff and parading around and doing its thing, really very respectable distance. And as we got up to move away, he just thought, right, I'm going to have you, and just tore after us and was jumping up at John's legs, at my legs, and flapping around. And they're quite big, intimidating birds, these huge grouse. And it's one of the reasons why these rogue male capercaillie, unfortunately, because they have no fear, don't tend to last to the next season, because they don't have fear of anything. But a magnificent bird and quite an experience. And as we're enjoying these walks, enjoying these very, very varied habitats, marshes and wetlands and lots of boggy areas and woodlands, we're seeing species such as Ortland bunting here, common rosefinch, cuckoo, of course, other species, thrush nightingale, spotted crake maybe, lots and lots of species, icterine warbler, just to name but a few. Lots of other more common migrants, windchats. It's really a super birds everywhere. Ospreys breed here and will be seen migrating through the area. Common crane, they breed here in good numbers. So as we're touring from site to site, it'll be a fairly frequent sight. Common crane, maybe with youngsters in the fields and on the marshes. And I like this photo. This is what you would dream of in the UK, maybe on the East Coast migration spots. So the wryneck and the redback shrike on the same branch, and they're frequently encountered. Very good chance of seeing these two species. That of course are very, very tricky to come across here in the UK. So just an awful lot to see. It just highlights every single day. It's not just about the birds. We appreciate everything. As you'll probably be aware, we're not tend to focus solely on one area. We enjoy everything on Naturetrek trips, and there'll be some beautiful butterflies to enjoy. This is northern checkered skipper, fairly widespread species across through Sweden, and Camberwell beauty. As we're walking in the forest, you might come across this stunning butterfly. So that's sort of the lowland area, the area around the Black River Valley, and as I said, we have a tour that just visits there. And then we also on Sweden's upland birds combines that lowland area, and then we travel quite a bit further north to get to upland tundra habitats. And on the way, we'll stop off at the Green Hotel, fabulous views and gardens, and take some walks there. And continue on our way up towards the sort of upland tundra plateaus. As we travel north, we'll start to see species such as brambling more frequently. A cracking male here in breeding plumage with his sort of jet black head, and that's a feature really, I think, of visiting Sweden. There's lots of species that you'll see that you may have seen before, but they'll have been seen on passage or wintering, not in their breeding plumage, and it really is for me very special seeing these birds on their breeding grounds, doing on their breeding quarters. Lots of redwings will be singing and nest building, and just increasing numbers as we move north. And there's a chance of seeing hawk owl, of very special species. They're a bit of an eruptive species in Sweden. They'll move in from further north and east, depending on on food availability in their core range. But most years, some birds will move south into Sweden, and the guides are very sharp, and we'll get onto any news of a hawk owl, and we'll stop off en route and suss out the area and try and see this super owl. So it's just yet another owl species we may be lucky to see. As we travel north, we'll stop off at the Phillips National Park. I may not have pronounced that correctly, but it's a superb national park, and we'll have a cracking walk up into the valley here through some sort of boggy boardwalk areas to start with, and some spruce and pine woodland, and then work up to this viewpoint here where you can view the cliff face and hope to see a very special resident. Falcon nest here every year, a single pair, usually fairly close to the waterfall there, and it's a case of scanning the rock face and hoping to see hoping to find Falcon nest. Look for a bit of whitewash or some sticks, of course, and hopefully you'll be in luck. And this is the female Falcon sat on her nest, and it's the real reason for visiting, stopping off in this national park on our way north. Really stunning bird. This is a classic scene as we're traveling through Sweden. Just beautiful sort of boggy areas, sort of dotted birch woodland with junipers and other conifers dotted around, and shallow pools and bogs, and lots of always birds out on the water, and just so much to see. Just endless habitat. It's just fantastic to see. Something we just obviously you don't see here. Black-throated divers, very frequently seen. Stunning birds. They almost become, you start to drive past sometimes. You think, blimey, we shouldn't be driving past that. You're seeing them regularly on these pools. Slavonian grebe here, another really real star species that we make an effort to find and take photos of. Often very close to the edge of the pools. Actually, they don't tend to get, they're not put off. You can you walk around a lake and think, blimey, there's a Slavonian grebe on the nest just a few meters away, and then they're not bothered. You can have some super photo opportunities. I'm no photographer, but this was just with a little point and shoot bridge camera. It's really amazing. Hooper swans, another species that will breed on these pools. Velvet scoter is another, and it's just, yes, as I said before, very special to see these species on their breeding grounds rather than wintering or on passage. So as we head north, we'll start to see the open tundra high plateaus in the distance, where the sort of forests come to an end, and then we'll move out onto this sort of snow-covered tundra habitat. And this is where we're aiming for ultimately to on the Upland Birds tour. Away from the birds, when we get up here, we've got a good chance of encountering mountain hare. We'll always be obviously on the lookout for absolutely anything, and we might see elk. We've got a very good chance of seeing elk, mammal wise, and keeping our eyes peeled for whatever we see. These are sort of semi-feral. They're reindeer. You'll see sort of quite large herds of them out on the open tundra. They're managed, but it's fantastic to see out on the snowscape. And there'll be lots of snow still up. We'll be arriving in the sort of early in the in the season, early in the spring. So the breeding birds will be back on territory, but there'll still be quite a few big patches of snow and ice and all around us. And as we get up onto this tundra plateau, one of the real highlights is going for a nice little walk onto the tundra, and just looking at these various different pools which are thawing out, and of course the birds are coming back in to breed on and around these pools. And there's just so many star birds up here to try and see. So it's a couple of days we'll spend exploring this fantastic habitat. Beautiful red-necked phalarope here, again often very confiding. Long-tailed ducks will be on these pools in their breeding plumage here, with the sort of black neck and feathering around the head, and the female here. And long-tailed skua, seeing long-tailed skua on their breeding grounds is is very, very special. And there's a good population here, and they'll be back by the time of our visit, and we'll take walks and scan for them, and hopefully get some beautiful flybys like this. Spectacular bird. Seeing breeding waders, of course, is very special. Beautiful golden plover here, not a rare species, but just look at those stunning markings, and they'll be breeding out on the tundra, and they'll time it so it's not a problem at this time of year with the midges. We're there early enough in the season, but obviously the waders are here and other species are here that later in the season, into sort of July and August, when there's just lots and lots of huge number of insects for them to feed their young on, and that's why they're here, and that's why so many birds come to this area to breed. Wood sandpiper, another species, and stunning dotterel. This is a female dotterel, so the females are brighter coloured than males with dotterels, as with the phalarope that we've just seen. So we've got a decent chance of finding dotterel as well. So, scanning the open areas, and as we take short drives and short walks around this fabulous habitat. Ruff is yet another wading species we hope to find. We don't often see, of course, ruff with their living up to their true name in the UK, but once we get to this area where they're breeding, you'll see why they're called ruff. These males with their beautiful neck feathering, getting geared up for the breeding season, and it's just a classic scene. Open tundra, a number of males all together, which will be displaying and hoping for females to spot them and fly in and next to them. And it's a super scene when you find a ruffleck, and that's another sort of just yet another highlight of the trip. And as we're walking around, Lapland buntings will be flitting around and singing away. Stunning male Lapland bunting here. As we're moving from site to site, it's often the case that we'll just pause, wind down the windows, have a little listen, and see if we can hear a blue throat singing. And they'll often be dotted along and sat on the little birch or alder trees, and just singing their hearts out from the top of these trees, and they will hop out and have a super view of this very special species. And up here, they're the red spotted race, as you see here. Whereas when you get out into Eastern Europe, they'll be white spotted. Stunning little birds. Siberian J, just yet another species when we go on our woodland walks. They have a real taste for sausages, bizarrely. So the guides will often have some little bits of sausage, and they'll pop it in an open area, carry on the walk. And when you get back, some jays have spotted it and hop and come out to feed on them. So we can have some super views of Siberian J on most of our trips. Now, as if the highlights, I've gone through endless highlights, and it's hard to fit it all into just a 20-minute slot. This is another. So this is taken at around near midnight, and when you're this far north, it's not really getting properly dark. So on one evening, we'll head out up onto a sort of upland plateau, and we'll hope to see a great snipe lek, and it's just another real highlight. It's a fantastic walk up to the area that you view them from. We often see black grouse on the en route, and then you sort of position yourselves and wait, and you start to hear the sort of the popping calls and the funny the amazing noise of the great snipe, and they'll be jumping up and down and puffing up their chest and just leaping around all over the place, puffing up their wings, and giving a really great display. And that's a real highlight of the trip, and we always make an effort to get out to a great snipe lek. So that's the previous slides. There have been a bit of a whistle stop through that upland birding trip, starting in the lowlands and then working our way north, and with the aim to get to that tundra upland area for those upland species. Of course, we have, as I mentioned earlier, we also have the 4-night mammal tour, where we'll be heading out searching for species such as elk, a bit more dedicated to finding the mammals. Spotlighting sessions will aim to get out and try and hear wolves howling, which is a absolutely wonderful experience, and take some boat journeys on lovely quiet lakes to try and see beavers. And there's other mammals, of course. On my tour, we were lucky enough, we put in quite an effort with the spotlighting and actually found Eurasian lynx, which was incredible. So there's lots of mammal opportunities as well. So it really is a country that has so much to offer, whatever your interest. Of course, mainly you know, there's so many birding highlights. That is the key focus, of course. There is so much to see. I can't recommend a view of just endless habitat full of wildlife, and that really sums up what Sweden's all about for me. So thank you very much for listening. I'll be delighted to answer any questions you have through the rest of the show, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and pass you over to Jessica. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. That was great. Over to you, Jessica.
Okay, hello. Let me just get started. Right then, why is that not slideshow from beginning? Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the alpine flowers of the Gould Plateau. I've got a little message to me about low system resources. I hope that doesn't mean that you can't hear. Hopefully you can all hear all right.
No, we can see and hear you fine. Thanks, Jessica.
That's lovely. So this trip runs to southern Norway, and it runs in early July, late June, early July, when you've got, as Tom said, really long days and usually very good weather. Obviously, you can get all the seasons in a day: warm sun, heavy rain, and sometimes we can have snow as well. But that isn't normal, said she hastily. In fact, when we had some snow a couple of years ago, when we were up there, all the Norwegians were panicking because they're so used to snow in winter, but snow in summer they just couldn't cope with at all, and they were closing roads, etc., etc. Anyway, we fly into Oslo Airport here, Gardermoen, and on this trip we're collected by the hotel minibus, and we head a couple of 100 kilometers up to the Gould Plateau, just north of the town of Gould. And most of our walks are fairly local in this area around here, but one day we venture further afield and we head over to Myrdal in the mountains down, and then go on the Flom Railway, which is a famous mountain railway, and then take a short cruise on part of Sonja Fjord, like that, which is Sonja Fjord here, is the largest and deepest fjord in Norway. But we're based on our trip at the Camben Hotel, which is a very traditional, cozy hotel run by business partners Martin and Ellen, and serves really lovely food. And the dining room is here, so it has lovely views, and quite a lot of the rooms have views out as well over the field at the back here, where you quite often have mountain hares, short-eared owls sometimes feeding, and very regularly there are quite a number of common cranes. In fact, in 2019, which was the last time I was there, several of the clients didn't exactly complain, but commented that they were woken up each morning by the cranes. So that's a pretty good alarm clock, I think. And we do a lot of walking, as I say. Most of our walks are 5 to 10 kilometers, and Martin in the hotel minibus either drops us off at the beginning of the walk or picks us up at the end, or both. Some of our walks are linear, some are loops. He is at the end of one of our longer walks down to Vasset, waiting. I've given him a phone call about 15 minutes before and waiting to pick us up. So we're following trails through different sorts of habitat. A lot of it is open woodland and scrub with lots of pines and spruce and birch and willow. And then other times on more open Arctic heath. And the colour palette of the flowers, we choose the season so we get the best flowers. Very much blues and greys and whites, quite a soft, gentle colour palette. This is northern wolfsbane here, and caraway, wood geranium here, wood cranesbill, and a little bit of brighter colour from red campion and field buttercup down there. So the predominantly colours I always think of as being these blues and greys and mauves and so on. And there are good numbers of different willows. This is a downy willow with its rather beautiful catkin here. And we stop and we enjoy all the different plants. And a lot of the plants that we find, they have a very northern distribution. Sometimes they're also Alpine species that you find in Southern Europe, Pyrenees, Swiss Alps, Northern Italy, that sort of thing. Sometimes, as I say, they're just northern, circumpolar, that sort of thing. At ground level, there's a lot of moss, and there are also a good number of different club mosses, which are vascular plants, unlike the mosses. This one is, but they're very primitive plants. This is interrupted club moss, Lycopodium anatinum. They bear spores in these structures on the top there. And there's lots of bilberry and cowberry and crowberry, different plants like that. And if you look among the moss and so on, you may come across delicate, tiny little orchids, only, what, a couple of inches tall, something like that. A lot of things up here are very small, but very beautifully formed. This is lesser tway blade, Neotia cordata here. And in the background here is this flower, which is a chickweed wintergreen, which is neither a chickweed nor a wintergreen. It's in the primrose family, used to be called Trientalis, and it's recently changed its name to Lysomachia europea. Small cow wheat is another species that we find with its little yellow trumpety flowers. That's one of the hemiparasitic plants that gets its nutrients from other plants, grasses, that sort of thing, but makes its own sugars by photosynthesis. Another little plant we find that has a drooping head all the time is this one, one-flowered wintergreen, also known as St. Olaf's candlestick. If you imagine it turned upside down, you can see that that's perhaps a little candlestick there. Has very waxy petals, pretty little thing. And even smaller, Alpine speedwell, tiny little specks of blue along the path, Veronica alpina. And as the name suggests, you do find that in the Alps as well. In taller vegetation, you get plants such as water ravens, Geumrivale, and you can see here in the background, we've got wood horsetail and other things growing there. Where it's wetter, you get species such as bog rosemary, delicate tiny little pink bells, and you also find cranberry, again, tiny, tiny little flowers and red berries growing on mossy tussocks in very boggy places. And cranberry is one of the food plants of the cranberry blue, which is one of the special butterflies that we look out for when we're up there. Other butterflies, as Tom was saying, we look at everything, include Arran brown. And another one is bog fritillary, but that one seems to be less common than pearl bordered and small pearl bordered fritillaries, which we see more of. There's also cranberry fritillary as well. but quite often if the sun's shining, they're all zooming around at high speed and it's quite difficult to catch one at rest. Where it's slightly drier, we find we've got cloudberry, Rubus camimorus, which has orange berries, a bit like blackberries, very tasty, but we don't actually find them in berry when we're there. And plants like Alpine Bartzia. That's another one that's well known in the mountains of southern Europe, in the Alps and so on. The path that we take down to a little hamlet of Brautimo goes through this very boggy boreal wet woodland. The path usually isn't too boggy, there's just one place where you cross a stream, but you've got this fairly ancient woodland with lots of dead and decaying trees and so on. And you find absolutely amazing lichens in these areas. So here are just some of the lichens that you find. There's this one, Bryoria, which can look like tufts of elk hair or something stuck to a branch. There are these great big billowy ones of reindeer star reindeer lichen, Cladonia stellaris, and one of the red elf cup group here, another one there, Solarina. So absolutely gorgeous lichens, and we enjoy those as well as everything else. In fact, although this isn't elk hair, we do find plenty of evidence of elk, and just occasionally we may encounter one. This one was actually, it's a youngster, was by the road where we were stopping to start a walk a couple of years ago. He was hiding behind a bush, or his head was anyway, sort of on a "you can't see me because I can't see you." And then he gave up and started walking away. Birds along the walk. It's pretty quiet for birds at this time of year. But you've got Siberian J. We don't actually put sausage out for them. You can see here the rusty edges of tails for them. But we quite often have some quite good views of the Siberian Jay, and just occasionally we encounter black grouse and even capercaillie can be seen there in the woods. Another day we walk off the southern edge of the plateau down into the valley to the little town of Goul, which nestles down here. So it's a nice downhill walk, and then Martin meets us in Goul with the minibus to drive us back up the hill at the end of the day. And this is looking along the Hallingdal valley. This path contains an area that's very good for twin flower, delicate tiny little flower said to be Linnaeus's favourite flower and called in honour of him Linnea borealis. Found in one or two places in Scotland, but pretty rare in the UK. And you also find wintergreens. We've got round-leaved wintergreen here, common wintergreen, with these sort of, again, quite waxy bell-shaped flowers. And in the woodlands, you may come across lesser butterfly orchid here, or creeping ladies' tresses in a couple of places in the woods that we look out for. Other butterflies we find, there's the northern form of the large wall brown, Forma borealis, that's very, very much darker than large wall browns in the south. And we often see one or two scarce coppers in more open places. And we look at all the different insects. There's a bee chafer here on this yarrow. This time of year, midges aren't usually an issue, but when you are in the enclosed wooded areas and if it's very still, then yes, we can be aware of them. So we take our insect repellent and so on. It's usually not too much of a problem though. Another day we walk from the hotel to a little hill called Sinigan, and that's at 1,031 meters at the top, has lovely views all the way around. The hotel's about 850 meters above sea level, and it's quite a stony top with, you've got lots of juniper here, and in the rocks at the bottom there's oblong woodsia, which is one of Britain's rarest ferns, but you can find it here. And in other places you come across tufted saxifrage, Saxifraga cespitosa, annual stonecrop is up there as well. And on the way down, as we walk back to the hotel, in damp places, there's often a good display of hairy stonecrop, different stonecrop, and yellow saxifrage, Saxifraga ozoides, and starry saxifrage, which used to be Saxifraga stellaris, but has recently changed its name to Micranthes, but another delicate little flower. And there are some very nice hay meadows along the path as well, with lots of colour. So we enjoy whatever it is that we're seeing. Birds, yes, we get fieldfares, redwings, siskins, redpolls, maybe brambling. Here's a photo that a client took of white wagtail, showing very clearly its grey back as opposed to the black back of the pied wagtail in the UK. Another day we go further north and we walk out across the Arctic heath, doing a walk from Grunley to Vasnet. There we are, setting off up the hill before we get down onto the flat. And here there's good quantities of blue heath, mountain heath it's also called. Again, very, very rare in Scotland. And also Lapland lousewort, delicate yellow flowers, creamy yellow. And we also often get good views of blue throat, maybe ring ouzel, golden plover, and other species out. Usually plenty of evidence of willow grouse, willow ptarmigan, but don't very often see them, it must be said, but they are around. Towards the end of that walk, the path goes down to a stream where we find drooping saxifrage with its little bulbils all down the stem. It can reproduce without the need for pollination. And it's a site for Moor King, a different lousewort that has a northern and eastern distribution with these yellow and pink flowers. Often it's only in bud or just coming up when we get there, but it depends on the season. Another day we climb the largest mountain in the area, which is Skulkshorn. That's 1,728 meters to the top. We normally only go about 2/3 of the way up at the most. But again, this area, very good for blue throat, ring ouzel, that sort of thing. And the blue heath, Lapland lousewort, and also species such as Alpine bearberry in flower and berry here, and trailing azalea, delicate little pink flowers carpeting the ground. And another very, very delightful little flower, matted cassiope. Again, very, very tiny, maybe an inch tall, with those delicate little white bells. If you do go further up towards the top, then there's a chance of finding Glacier crowfoot, Ranunculus glacialis in pink and white. And the views are lovely all round. So one day we venture further afield and we take a trip called Norway in a Nutshell, and we travel by train from Gull Station over to Myrdal on the Bergen line. And the train stops at Finse, which is the highest station in Norway at 1,222 meters, where there's always plenty of snow, and it overlooks the Hardanger Glacier over there. Usually stops long enough for you to get out and just have a very brief nosy around before we carry on to Myrdal. And when we get to Myrdal, we join the Flom Railway, as I mentioned before, and that sort of corkscrews down from the mountains to sea level through amazing scenery. And we stop at this waterfall. It has a scheduled stop for about 5 minutes, so everyone can get out and really enjoy the power of this tremendous waterfall. When we get down to sea level, we take a very quiet electric ferry that goes along Ålandsfjord and Narufjord, two of the tributaries, if you like, or arms of Sonja Fjord, enjoying this dramatic scenery. Absolutely amazing. And as we travel, then you sometimes see perhaps a harbour seal or a porpoise or a black guillemot to remind you that Sonja Fjord is joined to the sea, and so it is maritime. And once we get to Gudvangen at the end of the boat trip, we're collected by Martin or someone from the hotel in the minibus to drive us back to Camden. And we go through Europe's longest road tunnel at 23.5 kilometers long. I say it does seem never ending when you're going through it, but it cuts out a long detour. One of the special flowers in this area that's further west that we usually manage to see is pyramidal saxifrage. Apparently it's one of Norway's national flowers. The other one is heather, but this very dramatic saxifrage with an enormous head of flowers. And on the way back, we also take a stop at the medieval stave church at Borgund. Again, a fascinating building and well worth a look round. So in our week, we really do enjoy some of the best of this area of Norway. Quieter bird-wise than Sweden, but lots of interesting plants. And this photo was taken at 11 o'clock at night with the evening sun on the hills. And at that sort of time, if you scan these distant fields, particularly over this area, you will sometimes see elk coming out of the forest and just grazing. Not a bad view to have from your bed or from the dining room. But thank you, everybody, and I hope you've enjoyed that.
Thank you, Jessica. That was fantastic. Some really mouth-watering scenery there. It's certainly taken me away from my living room where I can hear the rain slashing against the windows here, here in Hampshire. And thank you, Tom, as well. We're going to go now to a short break, folks. We'll be just under 10 minutes, so we'll be back at 8:25. You've got time to nip to the kitchen, get yourselves a top up of your drink, and we'll be back at 8:25. See you shortly. Okay, folks, welcome back. And we will now be joined by Tim Melling, who's going to take us to Finland.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Right, here we go. So Finland's mammals. Finland is a superb place for mammals, including things and combinations of animals that you're very unlikely to see anywhere else in Europe. We do some shorter trips for individual ones, but what I'm going to concentrate on today is the 8-day trip that has 3 bases to cover all of the best of the mammals. So I'll start with that. So like everyone else has been saying, Finland is very similar to all these other Fennoscandian countries, except it's probably a bit flatter than the others, but it's essentially an awful lot of bogs, lakes and forests. And this is just the kind of thing that you encounter. There'll be a little bit of repetition here because a lot of the birds and things are the same, but on the bogs there are lots of cranes breeding, so you do tend to have cranes sort of flying around and calling all the time. The forests are generally pretty quiet for birds, but every once in a while you do chance upon something quite exciting, like capercaillies that I've managed to see. Also, another very elusive one that I have managed to see in Finland. In fact, Finland is the only place where I have managed to see this species, but that's the hazel hen or hazel grouse. Extraordinarily elusive, but it does occur in reasonable numbers. And you expect grouse to have that funny sort of low-pitched sort of chattering sound, but these ones don't. They have a high-pitched whistle, almost like a dog whistle there. The other bird that others have mentioned as well is Siberian Jays. These ones move around in big flocks, big family parties, and it's just chance whether or not you will bump into one of these parties. You can go for hours in the forest and not see anything, and then all of a sudden, the place you find that you're surrounded by Siberian Jays, and then they just move away as quickly as they came in here as well. So mammals, starting with a few mammals, mountain hares are really quite common, even around the towns. I've seen them in the forest, but also in the open boggy areas as well. I've never seen brown hares in Finland, but plenty of mountain hares. And there is another very special mammal that we try and target, but it is a difficult one for obvious reasons, and that's the Siberian flying squirrel. They're tiny little squirrels. Their eyes look too big for the size of the squirrel, like those dogs in the tinderbox it reminds me of. You see their great big beady eyes there. But they inhabit old woodpecker holes. And even though in the north of Finland, it's so near the Arctic Circle that it hardly goes dark in the middle of the night. It just goes into a kind of twilight. But during the hours that would be night in Britain, then the Siberian squirrels become active and they come out of these woodpecker holes and fly around the forest. But the trouble is once they've left the woodpecker hole, it's really difficult to keep tabs on them because they move very fast. But we do visit known woodpecker holes in the hope of connecting with this charismatic little animal. As Jessica said, twin flower, it really is a very, very common plant there. It's very rare in Britain. I've hardly ever seen it in Britain, usually in the Caledonian pine woods in Scotland. But here it's so abundant, it's difficult to walk without treading on it when you go into the forest there. And butterflies as well. Again, there'll be a little bit of repetition here. I think I've got a few new species, but northern checkered skipper is the common skipper in these areas. The other one was Camberwell beauty that Tom mentioned once. Camberwell beauties, I saw them in such abundance that I've never seen a butterfly as abundant as the Camberwell beauties in Finland. As we drove back to the airport, they were everywhere. There were clouds of them. They were even bouncing off the screen of the car, and you know, the whole place was just alive with Camberwell beauties. It really didn't surprise me that some of them do make it across the North Sea and arrive in Britain when you see them in that kind of abundance over there. And the other butterflies are also quite choice. Moorland clouded yellow is another one that I've only ever seen in northern Scandinavia. It's sat there on a dwarf birch as well, which is another one that is a scarce plant in Britain, but really, really common over in Finland. And when you go out on the bogs, cranberry blue is the other one. That's a female. Males are blue all over, and they do feed on the cranberry and the bilberry that grows in the bogs. And also, this is a pearl-bordered fritillary. It doesn't look like any pearl-bordered fritillary I've ever seen. It looks much darker and more heavily marked, and the underwings almost look like a small pearl-bordered to me. But and I couldn't understand it, because in Britain, all of our fritillaries are like this, are dependent on violets growing in woodland. But when the out there, they were occurring in woods where I didn't see any violets growing, and it was only when I got home and checked I found that they fed on bog bilberry, and as do a lot of things. Even holly blues feed on bog bilberry out there, and that's another plant that is actually quite rare in Britain. I've not seen that very many times. So the first place that we go to stop is Lake Saimaa, which is a freshwater lake. It's actually the biggest lake in Finland. It's a huge, extensive lake dotted with lots of islands, and we take a boat trip out on Lake Saimaa in the hope of seeing a few of the special things. There are plenty of ospreys in the area and plenty of divers. There are also beavers, so that's probably one of the best chances we have of seeing beavers out there. And also, it's the only place where the subspecies of the ringed seal occurs. Ringed seal is normally a high Arctic seal, but this is I mean, imagine having a seal living in a freshwater lake. It's all, you know, it's completely unheard of in Britain, but up there is this tiny relict population of just a few hundred. It's critically endangered, but they're also incredibly skittish because all the big predators that live in Finland would also like to eat seals that make a good meal, so it makes them very timid and difficult to photograph. So I must admit that this ringed seal wasn't taken in Lake Saimaa, it was taken up in the Arctic. But even in the Arctic, they're not very easy to photograph, our ringed seals. Now, I put this one on because this is taking us to our next stop, a place called Lichens, and this is where we want to see the largest terrestrial member of the weasel family. Now, weasels are tiny, we call them mustelids is the family, and it also includes badger and otters and things like that, but mustelids, and the weasel is the smallest of one that we have in Britain, and it weighs about 200 grams. But at Lichens, the thing that we're hoping to see is the largest terrestrial member, which is a wolverine. And they weigh about 20 grams, so that's 100 times heavier, and I think 100 times the attitude as well of a weasel. Really, really feisty things are the wolverines. I'll talk a bit more about them in a few minutes. So what we do for the wolverines is we stay in hides, and there's a number of hides that you can sit in, and the ones that you can see over on the right there, those are the so-called photographic hides, because a lot of photographs are picky about wanting to have an isolated background, so it gets you on the flat level, and they put food on the stones and things to get the wolverines to come and pose for you. But and we usually spend 2 nights here, so that you can swap over hides or even go to some other hides in the area, but they usually know which ones are producing wolverines, so they get you there. And so this is the view from the other hide, the so-called non-photographic hide. And this is what it's like when you get in the hide. You see, you've got these little canvas sleeves that you can poke your camera out of, and because it's so dark in there, you can the animals don't see you through the glass, and so you can look out of the windows, and then when you see something that you want to point the camera at, you then get into your little canvas sleeve and start taking the photographs. And you'll notice that they've got old car seats in there which can recline. So because you have to be there during the night, I say during the night because it hardly goes dark, but you are there when your body's telling you it's sleepy time. So if you really want to have a sleep, you can just recline your seat, have a little sleep, and hope that your friends will wake you up if something good appears whilst you're in the hide there. Whilst you're waiting for the big stuff to arrive, there's lots of other things to look at. Red squirrels are fairly common in that general area, as are things like brambling in nice breeding plumage there as well. They're often in the just flitting around, and, you know, very common bird, a bit like chaffinches are in Britain. You know, if you go in a wood, you expect to see them. And ravens are ever present. That's because they come for the food that they put out there. Now, this is the view from the hide. And just to have a look at that log with the thing sticking up, because that's where we're going to come in a minute. But so wolverines occur over a huge area. They you know, a massive area, and your chances of seeing one under normal circumstances are infinitesimally small. And also, I mean, just imagine if a friend said, "Can you take me and show me weasels or stoats in Britain?" You'd be at a loss, because they're one of those things that you occasionally bump into opportunistically, but to actually go somewhere and hope to see these mustelids is really difficult. And it's just the same with wolverines. But what they've been doing there is they've been putting meat out in and getting the animals used to it. So now they come for their food. And also wolverines, well, another name for them is glutton, because they like their food. But what they do is, if you just leave meat out for them, they'll just grab it and run off with it, and that will be the last you'll see of them. They're only there for a few seconds. So what the trick is to put it in places that are going to take them a few minutes to get, so it keeps the wolverines there for longer. So they hide things under boulders and up trees and things like that as well. So but you can see, if you just go back to the other side, can you see that log and on the left hand side? Well, that's a wolverine on that same log. The other one was taken with a wide angle. This is taken with a 400mm lens. And wolverines, they did actually used to occur in Britain. There are fossil records of them between about 13,000 and 10,000 years ago. But at the time of the last ice age, they disappeared and have never been seen since then. So you have to go abroad to be able to get a wolverine fix. Now, male wolverines, the biggest ones, they have a huge home range. The male's territory is about 600 to 1,000 square kilometers. Imagine that. So, you know, your chances of bumping into one without baiting are pretty slim. Females have a smaller territory. Theirs is 50 kilometers to 350, and you'll usually have about 2 or 3 female territories that overlap a male's territory. For obvious reasons, males tolerate females in their territories, and they usually have 1 to 5 kits early in the spring, and the kits will stay with the mother and for about 2 years. So what we hope to get is a mother with some kits, which means that you've got multiple wolverines around, and that's what we hope to do. And all these were taken from the hide there. The other thing about wolverines is they've got a strength and ferocity that is legendary. It's much bigger than you would expect from the size of the animal. They're bigger than the biggest badger, a bit like a badger on steroids, really, you know, because badgers can be big, chunky animals as well. But so in the wild, the kind of things they eat are reindeer. Imagine that, you know how big a reindeer is, and you know, these are like big, bulky badgers. They can tackle those. We do see reindeer as well in the forest, and also moose, or elk, as we're supposed to call them, but I get out of the habit of calling them elk, because whenever I go to North America, elk there is a completely different species, so I'll call it moose. But we also see moose, but wolverines will also tackle and kill moose as well, which is amazing. But like badgers, they're omnivores, so you know, whilst they are voracious carnivores, quite a lot of the time they'll just feed on berries and stuff like that. So you know, they're very, very happy doing things like that. So, as I mentioned, they hide meat high up in trees. I think he gets a ladder out and puts it really high, which necessitates the wolverines to climb the trees. And you can see them, like the cartoon Tasmanian devil, they're just snarling and full of attitude all the time. But this was right in front of the hide, you know, this wolverine climbing up the tree right in front of me. And then it gets to the top and starts eating the food that it's that they've put out for it. But you can see its sort of teeth there. I mean, it's a good 15 feet up the tree there when it's trying to get out, but it means that it keeps them there long enough for you to enjoy and photograph. But bears also appear attracted by the food that is put out, and as soon as a brown bear appears in the woods, the wolverines don't like it. They won't tackle a brown bear. They know when they've been beaten with a brown bear. So what happens then is the wolverines scamper down the tree trunk and beat a hasty retreat, and a clean pair of wolverine heels there is all you'll see when a bear appears. So quite often we're cursing the bears for appearing, because that does get rid of the wolverines, but the wolverines are pretty much guaranteeable, about as near as guaranteeable as you can get in that area. And anyway, if the wolverines disappear, you can get some pretty good views of bears as well. These were taken from the wolverine hide just after he'd scared off the wolverines, and you know, and sometimes the views are just extraordinarily close. You know, these great big hulking bears come right the way up because they know that humans never come out of there. There's nothing to scare them, and so they're habituated to the hide and the smells of humans there, and that's what's going on there. So because it's on a lakeside as well, when bears appear more distantly, it gives you a bit more time to be a bit more creative with your photographs. This was taken from the lower photographic hide, but it means you can go for reflections on a nice day of bear reflections. And sometimes bears do daft things as well, like stand up rather photogenically for you in a very human-like way and pose for photographs. This is a young bear. Young brown bears often have these white markings around their the collar area that usually disappears as they get older. So that was all in the Lieska area, and then when we've been there for 2 nights, we then head on to our final destination, which is called Kumo, and here the hides are placed in a place within a wolf territory, and so there's a really good sporting chance of seeing wolves. Most of the recent trips have actually connected with wolves at this site, but it isn't. What they do here is they bait the area with a pig carcass, and a pig carcass is pretty big and enough to keep a lot of predators going. So if one comes along and has its fill and then leaves, there'll be enough food for others to come. So that usually keeps a throughput of predators visiting the area during the course of the night whilst they demolish this pig carcass. So as well as seeing the wolves around the place, you end up seeing bears as well. And I'm saying bears plural because up to 8 get seen there. People, you can recognize them by their size and markings and sex, and you know that they know that they get up to 8 of them there. And it's also a place where we get wolverines as well. So you know, you've got 2 bites of the wolverine cherry, but this is the only place that you are likely to see wolf. And as I say, that the chances are pretty good because it's smack in the middle of a wolf territory, and the pig carcass is just irresistible for the wolves. So that ends the 8-day mammal trip to Finland to see the big predators of Europe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much then, Tim. Thank you. Right, I'll just share my screen so that I can proceed to talk about Iceland. Okay, I hope everybody can see that okay. So my name's David Phillips. I've been working for Naturetrek now for the last 5 and a bit years, and I'm a very keen and enthusiastic supporter of anything Icelandic. I've been very fortunate to go up there a couple of times this year, many times in the past, but this year we ran a couple of trips, both in July and in September, up to Iceland. As Sarah said when she was introducing us, Iceland is was one of the very first countries to go green, and hence it was a place that we could run trips to from an early stage, and I was very keen to sort of lay on a trip up there. So I'll just proceed. The photographs, as I've commented at the bottom there, taken by myself and leader Dave Jackson, who leads many of our tours, or will be leading all our tours going forward, and a couple of clients as well who've been on tours and have happily let us use the photographs. So whereabouts is Iceland on this Google Earth image of the world, as it were, with the sea stripped away? You can see that Iceland there in the upper part of the image. I'll use my big cursor here so you can see, point at exactly where it is, right in the middle of the Atlantic and on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. So the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is this line along the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where the two plates of North America and Europe are dividing, and Iceland sits right on top of that. In fact, it sits on a mantle plume, so it's a very volcanic country, and that has been something which has given us great interest, particularly in the last year. As this image here shows how the line of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge actually cuts right through the middle of Iceland. Basically, the two halves of Iceland are separating slowly over millions of years along this sort of line of fissures and the tectonic rifting and volcanoes, which are all formed along that volcanic belt that runs through Iceland. And I'll just draw your attention to Reykjavik, which is down here in the bottom left. That's the capital where you fly into. But this has been a scene of great interest in the last this last year, because of a volcano that's just about where I put the cursor there, on the Reykjanes Peninsula. This was all getting very interesting earlier on in the year, about early sort of through January, February. There was a lot of seismic activity going on along the peninsula there that Reykjavik is on. Reykjavik is just up here, so literally about 40 kilometers away. There's all these earthquakes occurring earlier on in the year, and this snapshot on the 12th of March shows just how many earthquakes there were. A number of them in the scale of the Richter scale, 3, 4, and even up to 5, which is very, very large for Iceland. And we knew that something was likely to be happening. And lo and behold, on the 19th of March this year, a volcano started to erupt on the peninsula there. It's called Fagradalsfjall, or at least that's the name of the wider volcanic area that it is in, and that's the name that's usually attributed to this particular volcano. This shot was taken early on in the year, when there was a lot of snow around on the mountains roundabouts, and people were able to come in really, really close and get up close to the front of the lava. You may well have seen shots of this on television. There's lots of live cameras that you can still tune into to see the volcano. This image here shows how, as over the preceding months, the lava started spreading out across the landscape into various valleys around there, and this was really quite an exciting thing to try and put a tour together to go and see. And indeed, in July, the first week in July, I was up there with a group of people, including Alan, who's tuned in tonight, and we had this amazing view of fountains of lava being thrown up from the cone of this volcano. We were looking out across the valley at this wondrous sight, and really it's attracted many people to look into traveling to Iceland, I think, over this year, because of the exciting prospect of seeing a truly sort of active volcano like this. And that same lava that I was showing, that chart shows how it sort of spread across the landscape. There I am at the foot in the valley there, where the lava in literally the preceding weeks had accumulated and cooled to this amazing sort of black sort of scene that you have here. This lava in the Nautagi Valley of Iceland. So that's enough about the volcano, which we've obviously tried to integrate into a trip if it's entirely possible and if it's active. Now, in fact, that particular volcano has gone a little bit quiet of late. In fact, for the last 2-3 weeks, it's been largely inactive, but it is an interesting volcano in as much as it's fooled the scientists a number of times. People have thought that it's it's gone quiet and then suddenly it would burst into life again. And indeed, there have been a lot of tremors in an area close by, so it may well be that it'll erupt again or erupt in an area close by to the original site of the volcano. But what I want to do tonight is just talk to you about the summer trips that we do to Iceland, the spring and summer trips, I should say, really, because last year during the slideshows I covered the winter in Iceland and talked about Northern Lights. Obviously, you can look back on the recorded versions of that if you want to learn about the trips that we do in the winter. But tonight I'm just going to talk about the 2 summer trips that we do and also briefly talk about the autumn tour as well. And basically the 2 trips in the spring going into the summer are essentially take you on a route that goes all the way around Iceland. They start in Reykjavik, where you fly into down there in the southwest. And then during the course of the tour that we call the Undiscovered Iceland, it goes along the south coast, visits various sites, glaciers and waterfalls and various birding areas, and then ultimately comes up to Lake Mývatn up here in the northeast. And then the Iceland in Spring tour picks up where that one leaves off and starts at Lake Mývatn and then continues the circuit round to Reykjavik on the north and western side of the country. These maps show you the 3 tours that I'm covering. So the top left image there is the Iceland in the Undiscovered Iceland trip. Then top right is the Iceland in Spring, and then the bottom image there is the Iceland in Autumn trip, which runs in a September time, and that one runs along the south coast and covers a lot of the same sort of ground as the Undiscovered Iceland trip, but just then returns back to Reykjavik. So all of the tours that all of those 3 tours and others that we do concentrate their time when they're in the southwest near Reykjavik on what we term the Golden Circle. These are 3 major attractions of Iceland. They are the rifting plates and all the cultural heritage that goes with the Thingvellir National Park, which is the image in the top left there. The amazing geyser, or the archetype of all geysers, is a place called Geysir in the Golden Circle, and that's the image in the top right there. So that's about a sort of 15-20 meter high geyser that goes off every sort of 5 to 10 minutes. And then Gullfoss, which is the waterfall that's down at the bottom left there. So these 3 sites are known sort of sites that are all within reach of Reykjavik and are all very sort of keenly visited by people who can go to Iceland. And these trips that we're talking about this evening incorporate a few days in this region, viewing those sort of iconic areas. But going along the coast, so if we start our sort of road trip along the south coast of Iceland, we come to a number of amazing waterfalls. Having seen Gullfoss, the Golden Waterfall in the Golden Circle there, we then, as we travel along the south coast, we visit Skógafoss, which is the one in the top right there, wonderful waterfall cascading over the basalt rocks there. Svartafoss, which is the one that on the top left, it's actually got, you can see all the beautiful basaltic columns that it cascades over the top of. That's a beautiful scene. And the bottom scene there is just one of the sort of black sandy beaches from a headland called Doralai, looking along the coast towards Vik. So this is the south coast of Iceland, visited on both the autumn tour and indeed the Undiscovered tour. And both of those 2 tours come to the Jökulsárlón, which is the glacial lagoon in the southeast of Iceland. This is where the Vatnajökull glacier, it's a big ice cap, biggest ice cap in Europe, outside of sort of Greenland or Spitsbergen. It's the largest ice cap, and it covers a huge area, and it cascades or glaciers come from the ice cap, and this area, it drops down into a lagoon, and they carve off and you have all these icebergs floating around in the lagoon there. And in and amongst the lagoon, there's lots of bird life. The barnacle geese breed in the area, so you're very likely to see them. There are common seals. There are fulmars and kittiwakes around the place. It's a really very beautiful place to visit. And interestingly, that lagoon then feeds out to the sea via a narrow channel. And then those icebergs get washed up, back up onto the shoreline, onto the beach, onto this diamond beach, as it's called. And you can go and wander amongst these phenomenal chunks of ice. It's almost like it's a natural sculpture park. And a very beautiful sort of scene, and photographers absolutely adore this sort of this area, and you often spend a lot of time trying to capture the beautiful blue of some of the ice there. Fortunately, on this occasion, back in September, we had a lovely blue sky day, and they really sort of picked out the colours in the icebergs very, very spectacularly. Birds, again, as I say, around that area, a lot of interesting bird life to see. So you've got great skuas and Arctic skuas breed in the area, breed throughout Iceland, but commonly seen around the glacial lagoon there. And then from the southeast, the undiscovered trip then takes a northerly route, heads up over the highlands, or part of the sort of northeastern highlands, towards Lake Mývatn, and this is a birding mecca in Iceland. It's a large lake, fourth largest lake in the country, a very shallow lake, but it has a lot of these chironomid flies in there, and that's the basis for the food chain there. So there are many duck species that breed, as well as many other species, and from the lookout point of these pseudo craters, they call them, which are on the southern shores of the lake, you can look across the lake and see some amazing bird life. Great Northern Divers breed there. Great Northern Divers, it's the only place in Europe that Great Northern Divers breed, and also you have the red-necked phalarope. A lot of these same species that the others have talked about this evening, that they've seen in Norway and Sweden and Finland, are also seen up in Iceland. And similar to what Tom was saying about the Slavonian grebe down there in the bottom right-hand corner, very close views you get of them. They breed just on the sides of the paths around the lake. In their beautiful summer plumage here, their breeding plumage. As I say, all of these birds, when you see them in May and June, they're really so much more spectacular than they are when you see this. You sometimes see those same birds down in the south coast off the coast of Great Britain, and they're not in their breeding plumage. They're grey and they're dull. But up in Iceland in May, June time, they're really in their finest attire, as it were. Arctic tern there in the top right, breeding all over the place, and of course, if you go near their nests, then they'll have a go at you. But that's one of the experiences of travelling in Iceland. And around the lake shores, you'll also see golden plover, so again, a species that's been mentioned several times. Reasonably commonly birds seen in the UK, but not often so fine examples as you'll see during the summer up there in Scandinavia, or indeed here in Iceland. And snipe breed there, and lots of red shank as well. But for birds that you don't see so elsewhere in Europe, there are two really, and the Barrow's goldeneye is one. This is a bird that breeds on the river that flows out from Lake Mývatn, the Laxá River. It's a male here, and these are sort of commonly seen throughout the year, in fact, up there. And they are, as I say, they're not commonly, they don't breed elsewhere in Europe. They only breed in North America, and Iceland is the most easterly point in their breeding distribution. And equally, the harlequin duck, this is also breeds in the same area. And again, it's the only bird, one of the few birds, I should say, that breeds in Iceland, but not in the rest of Europe, because its main breeding range is North America, and indeed other parts of the Pacific, Japan and places like that. But Iceland is the only European place that this beautiful bird breeds, and this is commonly seen on the river as it runs out from the lake at Mývatn. Mabbett is on the volcanic belt that runs through Iceland, so there's lots of volcanic activity to see, from sort of blorpy mud pools that smell of hydrogen sulfide to fumaroles. There's lots of interesting volcanic features to see. There's a big explosion crater on the side of the lake called Krefjell, and that's the crater in this scene here. And there are big fissures where the crust is just parting. As it is here, it's just on the eastern shores of the lake. The crater of Krefjell is there behind, and this particular fissure here, again, it's where North American and Eurasian plates are separating, and there's a hot water pool beneath this where you can bathe. Well, historically you could bathe, now you're not actually allowed to, but it's a warm pool, which is interesting to sort of just to go down. There are little caves you can go down and see and feel the warm water beneath. Just a shot of the type of accommodation that we use in Iceland. This particular hotel that I've taken photographs of here is actually the one we use at Lake Mabbett. So on the two of the trips that we talk about, this Undiscovered Iceland and Iceland in spring, we go to the Cell Hotel at Mabbett. But it's very typical of the other hotels that we use. They're very clean, very comfortable, usually give a very, very good breakfast. And yeah, very, very nice and very usefully located just opposite the lake. Whilst we're in the Mabbett area, we go up to Husavik on the north coast, which is only about an hour's drive through from the hotel. And from Husavik, where this arrow I've sort of put there to indicate where it is on the is a fishing town that is on the side of the big bay called Skalvandi Bay. And Skalvandi Bay is a mecca for whale watching. So in the summer times, we go up there and we go out on a boat out to sea. This is in fact just on the bottom left there, going out from the harbour of Husavik back in July. And we go on one of the electric boats that they have. So this is a way of approaching the whales more closely and not making any noise. This particular boat is electrically powered. And of course, the whole grid system up in Iceland is entirely carbon free because they get their electricity from geothermal and hydroelectric power. So it's all very, very green. And you can go out on this boat and it's very, very quiet. So you put it under sail, but equally it's powered if necessary, and obviously to go in and out of the harbour by electricity. And you're able to approach the whales very close. And the humpback whale here that we saw back in July came incredibly close to the boat. I mean, you don't approach the whales closely, but they came this one came very, very close to us and was very, just going underneath the boat and showing its fluke as it dived under. So it's really remarkable scene. There and out in that harbour. I've seen humpbacks every time I've been out on this particular boat, but equally there are other species. So I've seen blue whales in the bay there in the past as well. This last July we had long-finned pilot whales there, northern minke whale. Occasionally you get orcas in the harbour as well, in that bay I should say, not so much in the harbour, in the bay, the wider bay. So it's a real whale watching mecca. This town of Husavik on the north coast, and there's a tremendous museum as well to visit in Husavik, all to do with. It actually talks about the history of whaling in Iceland, as well as moving forward to more modern times now, when whale watching has become the way up there, and so there's an awful lot of interest in that, and they also have all these fantastic whales sort of skeletons hanging from the ceiling, so you can sort of look at the comparative sort of differences between the physiology of the whales and the size of the whales by looking at this exhibition, this museum up in Husavik. So the two tours that I spoke of then, that we're talking about now, the Undiscovered and the Iceland in spring trips, both converge at Lake Mabbett, which is up in the north here. Both of them spend 3 nights at Lake Mabbett. And both of them do the whale watching from Husavik. But that second tour you can pick up from there. The Iceland in spring then carries on further to the west. And in fact, in the past, people have combined the two tours. So you could do Undiscovered Iceland first, then stay for 6 nights up at Lake Mabbett. So you're combining the two tours and then picking up the tour over to see the western side of the country from there. And this second part, then goes, the Iceland in Spring tour goes from Lake Nevan over towards the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, which is this big peninsula that sticks out. I've marked it with an arrow on the map here. And we stay at the town of Stykkishólmur, which is on the north coast there, very pretty little town. And we're there for 3 nights. And during the time there, we travel along the length of the peninsula. We also visit an island called Flatey, which is just out in the bay, about here somewhere. On one of the days, we take a ferry across to there. And Flatey is a great place to see birds. Very interesting, lovely little island to visit. It's only about a mile or so long. And there are little hotels and that there, very, very small, very, very lovely little place to visit. But also along the length of the peninsula, there are sea cliffs, so you get to see lots of bird life there too. So actually, this is Flatey, this slide. So top right picture is Flatey, and the bottom left there is Stykkishólmur. So this is the town that we stay at, which we visit, and we take the ferry, which is shown there in the bottom right, across to the island of Flatey. And red or what we call grey phalarope breed on Flatey. So that is one of the key species that we go to look for there, where we see red-necked phalarope elsewhere. All over Iceland, we see them very, very commonly, the red-necked phalarope. The red phalarope, or grey as we call them, don't actually breed in many places in Iceland at all. They're quite rare there, but Flatey is one of the places that we go to see those. But as we make our way around the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, we visit a number of different sites as well. This is out at a place called Arnarstapi, which is nearly on the end of the peninsula. And there it's got a lot of interesting sort of sea cliffs and stacks and arches, kittiwakes there breeding, but lots of bird life, gannets flying around out to sea. Maybe harlequin ducks in the water if in the right season there, but lots to see, and it's a very interesting place. You've also got the backdrop of the Snæfellsjökull volcano, which is on the end of that peninsula, which has got a glacier on top of it, and is very, very sort of scenic. Bird life, as I say, very rich in that particular area. So puffins. I put these slides up of puffins, kittiwakes, and fulmars, but in fact, all around the coast on both trips, we visit sea cliffs where we see these species. It's not just on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, but that's one place where we do see them on this particular trip. And then that trip then returns, the Iceland in Spring trip goes back towards the Golden Circle area and stays at Gullfoss, so that big golden waterfall that I spoke of. There's a hotel very close by to that, and that's where we stay for the final 3 nights of the Iceland in Spring trip, and we visit that Golden Circle area. So that sort of closes the circle, as it were. Now, none of these, or neither of those 2 trips, spend a great deal of time in the city of Reykjavik itself. It's actually a really lovely little city, well worth spending extra time. If you are of a mind to spend time in Reykjavik, then we can always arrange for flights which either get in early or come back later from one of these trips, so that you have the opportunity to go and actually spend a few days in the capital. It's a small city, but it's got and very compact. But there's a lot of interesting things to see, a lot of culture. There are even some ponds and lakes where you can do some more bird watching if that's what you have in mind to do. But there's culture as well. There's a big, the bottom left picture here is called the Harbour. That's a big concert hall on the side of the harbour, which was started to be built when I first started going up there in 2010. And completed shortly after that. But that's a really quite impressive architectural building on the shore there. There's a lovely sculpture called the Sun Voyager on the top left here, again looking out over the harbour and very photogenic. So the photographers like to go and visit that. The Hallgrímskirkja is one of the main sites to see. That's this big church that is right up on a hill above the city, and was built just after the war, but from concrete, and those could be called either organ pipes or basalt columns. That they look like that sort of those sort of columns that make up the front of it. Are very, very scenic. It's a really sort of quite dominant and impressive looking building that looks out over Reykjavik. So that's my talk about Iceland. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it interesting. Like I say, it's a very interesting country, and it has been certainly over the last few months with all the volcanic activity, which is only ongoing because there's volcanoes erupt there every 5 to 10 years, and there may be others that are looking like they're starting to rumble away in other parts of Iceland that might well provide some entertainment for us and those interested in volcanology over the coming years. But it's also a great place for wildlife. So thank you ever so much. I'll close there and return you to Sarah.
Thank you very much, David. That was fantastic. I must admit, I'm extremely envious of that humpback whale encounter you had. And just described that the photos were just superb. I'm yet to have one swim quite so close to me. But you never know. Norway in January, perhaps, when I go and lead that cruise.
Yes, absolutely.
It's crossed, yeah. Right, folks, we've now got some time to take some questions. So Tom, we have a question for you about the best time of year to go to Sweden to see all of the splendid birds that you were referring to.
Well, as I mentioned, we have the tour Sweden in spring, short 3-night tour that's just focusing on the sort of more lowland areas. And that tour tends to be slightly earlier in May, sort of early to mid-May, and then slightly later in the season when you're heading up further north onto the tundra areas. That's usually right at the end of May into the first week of June. So through May and June, really, we're up there when everything's breeding, singing, staking territories. Yeah, that sort of thing. So that's the key time.
Okay, and we don't have any other questions at the moment.
Wow, we've got off lightly tonight.
Yeah, I know. Normally we get a grilling. Surely someone's got a few questions to ask us.
Brace myself for this bit.
Are people typing? Or a nice message from Tracy. Thank you for these fascinating presentations. I've visited both Iceland and Finland and can't wait to return. That's fantastic. Well, I think you've all done a wonderful job with the presentations this evening. I've been sitting here really enjoying listening to all of the different places. If we don't have any questions, folks, then we can close for this evening. I think the presentations have clearly been comprehensive enough that they've answered everything. Oh, here we go. I knew we'd get some. Okay, so thank you, John. When is the best time for bears in Finland? Over to you, Tim.
Well, bears are there all the time throughout the summer. We tend to go in June, July, when the nights are very short, and we're there, but they really are there. I mean, any time really from May through to August is when we go.
Yeah, good light for photography at that time. Long days.
Is, yeah.
Yeah. Right, folks. Well, Alan Woodward is asking, is there any chance of bear cubs? Tim?
Yes. You do see bear cubs at the sites. They're often there with the mothers, but they're often a bit nervous if there are other bigger bears around, and they don't like to come and feed if there's any danger to the cubs. So they are a bit wary. But I have seen bear cubs at the sites in Finland. Yeah.
And you're starting to get a grilling now, Tim. We've got a question from Maya, who's asking, what sort of distance are the bears, wolves and wolverines from the hides?
It's I mean, the bears and the wolverines are sometimes ridiculously close, down to 10 meters and less than that times, but you do have a big view, so they're not always as close as that, but they do put meat to bait things and bring things very, very close to you. And it's the same with the wolves as well. They put a pig carcass out to attract these things, but they don't put that right in front of the hide. They put it some distance away and the animals come in. So, but certainly photographically close. I'm just wondering whether Tom's got anything else to add on that one, because Tom's obviously visited as well.
Yeah, I think you've covered it well there, Tim. I mean, yeah, the wolverines from the hide, they can come ridiculously close, and the bears. The wolves don't tend to come quite as close, a bit more timid, a little further away, but still, as the photo showed in Tim's talk, still, fantastic views. But yeah, some of when I was up there with the wolverines, incredibly close. Yeah, super taught for photography. If you want to not just see but photograph these mammals, the hides is the way to go, for sure.
Yeah.
Right, well, thank you all so much. A big thank you to Jessica, Tim, Tom and David for presenting to us all, and thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I hope we've brightened your evening and provided you with some inspiration, or simply just some welcome armchair travel. We'd love you to join us next Wednesday on the 27th of October, where we'll be focusing on Eastern Europe, featuring Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary and Poland. We hope you can join us. You can sign up on the homepage on our website, and you'll also receive a follow-up email tomorrow, which will contain the link to register. We hope to see you there. And if you do think of any more questions after this evening, please don't hesitate to give us a ring in the office or drop us an email, and we'll be more than happy to chat to you. So until next time, it's goodbye from me. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, folks.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for the nice comments, folks.
Thanks.